Welcome to the Soul Professional Podcast, a global conversation series where curiosity leads, consciousness expands, and science meets soul. I'm your host, Camille Miller, joined by my co-hosts, Adam Guzman Poole and Adam Dickinson. Together, we explore the questions humanity is finally ready to ask, bridging worlds, perspectives, and ways of knowing. We're not here to provide answers. We're here to open portals to bigger conversations. So let's begin today's conversation. We are talking to Cristina Starr, who is an interdisciplinary scientist with degrees in physics from UC Berkeley and a master's in space policy from the American Military University. Today, she is dedicated to developing conscious leaders for the space age. Founder of Cosmic Citizen Training, she guides space, science, and wellness professionals in emotional intelligence and personal transformation. Cristina has spent decades of practice in Eastern and Indigenous spiritual traditions. She was voted top 100 women in aerospace and aviation for 2025 for her ethical leadership in space. Let's welcome Cristina to our show. Cristina, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you guys.
Yeah, so we always love to open up with a little bit about your history and science. And how your worlds kind of collided like a true soul professional. But my first question is, when you were in school working on your BS in physics, did you always have a spiritual like intuition or inkling, or did that come later?
I was actually introduced to Buddhism and yoga when I was 13 and
Okay.
took on a pretty soulful experience of that through my teenage years. And when I was at UC Berkeley, I was a part of a program called Meditation, Mysticism, and the Mind, which was a student-led course that was backed by professors that offered went through a series of all of the different mystical traditions of the world and the meditation within it. And so
Wow.
every semester I did that, and I also taught meditation. That's when I started teaching. I actually taught transcendental meditation in my high school English class for the first time, is when I led a meditation class. And that I still really remember the look on people's faces when they open their eyes and for the first time having meditated. And that was something that really carried me through. So the physics program at Berkeley was very brutal. And I considered the meditation, mysticism, and the mind class to be my church. It was my sangha, it was my anchor. It kept me in a disciplined practice. It was also really the first time that I had a disciplined daily 20 plus minute meditation practice, and I could feel the cumulative benefits of that, where prior to that it hadn't been. So yeah, I've kind of always been, even before I was really a scientist, I was practicing Buddhist and yogi, and I did my first yoga immersion when I was 18 also.
Wow. So you were really spiritual almost before, or you lived this duality the entire time. That's what it sounds like.
It
We
was
rarely
never
hear that, so it's
duality for me,
awesome.
right? Yeah, so the exploration of physics to me was just the same impulse that is the
Yeah.
spiritual impulse. I was really hungry for truth, and I wanted to understand how reality worked and who I was and what was possible. And um, all of my questions about the physical world seemed to all boil down to physics, right? I'd be in these earth science classes or astronomy classes, and I'd be like, but why? And how did you get that answer? And why? And it would all end up at some physics. So that's how I ended up there with the physics. And people have always asked me this, like, how do you hold these dichotomies? And when it
Yeah.
comes to indigenous and Eastern traditions, there really is no dichotomy. The science and religion piece is really about um, a kind of small Christian view of reality versus science.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have to agree that those things aren't compatible, and I'm not necessarily on board with the spiritual element, if you call it that. But from the Eastern perspective, the philosophies like Buddhist philosophy, which is just about like the state of the human condition, suffering, and how we can lead a life to free ourselves from it. And then the yogic tradition, which is very similar, but has even more granular and accessible understanding of philosophy of the inner world and consciousness. It brings consciousness in a way that physics never did. So I really see that my exploration, I was always just trying to understand who I am and what this place is. And so I was pulling on all the threads that I could. And those were the ones that I found to be the most rigorous and complete.
I'm curious that the people you surrounded yourself with, or even in the scientific world or the spiritual world, like I find them two different people, really. Like we come together as soul professionals, but there tends to be different threads. Did you find that in your world? Like when you were working in an office or a lab, or were you the odd one out?
Well, first of all, I went to Berkeley. And so Berkeley definitely is not representative of the rest of the world as far as
Okay.
a lot
I
of
was
very.
going to say that. I was going to say
So,
that.
there's a lot of just like being different is the thing that everybody is, and so
Okay,
we're all
good.
kind of the same in that. However, I definitely hear what you're saying, and yes, there tends across the board, like within the scientific community, there's a spectrum of people. I was surprised to find how many kind of closet spiritualists there were,
Yeah.
actually, and some that were not. I had one of my advisors and the PIs I did research for in astronomy, he was a Nobel laureate, and he was also a Templeton Prize winner because he was um, a deeply spiritual person, and he was not quiet about it. He was also a physicist, and he did a lot of work to bridge the two. To him, there wasn't any conflict, and it was just like this covers this side and this covers this side. So the the dichotomy though was there, and sometimes it was interesting to get into some lively debates with materialists or people who were had the vision that they understood what spirituality was, and it was this small vision of Christianity as then that worldview, and they rejected that outright, and then that was the end of the conversation because that encapsulates all spirituality. If you zoom out and you realize that that's one very small perspective, and then we can start having a more interesting conversation, right? So I found that um, there was a big difference when I left and I immersed myself in the health and wellness world. What I
Okay.
noticed was people who were a lot more emotionally intelligent, people a lot more in touch with themselves and their spirit. They were seekers on the path. They were just as hungry as I was for
Yeah.
this truth. And we found ways to support each other, right? Those conversations were not intellectual. Those connections were soul support, because serendipity had brought us together at that point in our journey to teach each other, to share with each other, to heal each other in some way, or to receive or give. Whereas my scientific colleagues, we're about the mission, and the mission is something external, and we are instruments in service of that. And there's a lot of workaholism and a lot of overwork, and it's highly competitive, and people are not well and not optimizing their personal capacity or their potential. Even though they're some of the most brilliant people in the world, they are not living lives that are supporting their wellness, and so they're compromising what they're capable of, and they have no idea of that because they're immersed in this academic culture or research culture that's just the norm, is that you work 60 to 80 hours a week. It's your number one priority. If you don't do it, somebody else will. and and you should just be really grateful that you get to,
Yeah.
right? That you
Yeah.
get to. So that's, yes, those are different, right?
Yep.
Those are
Yep.
definitely different. But then there's a Venn diagram where there were more like that people that were like me than you might think,
Oh,
right? Which
wow.
is, I think,
That's
what
good
you're,
to hear.
yeah.
That's what we want to hear. So, can you take us back when, say, when you finished your education? What were you doing at that point? Tell us a little bit about your work at that time and then how you progressed in the personal development side of it. You blended your worlds.
Hmm. Well, it was not a choice to
Okay.
leave, right? So I was in a PhD program at the University of Michigan, working on space and planetary physics with an emphasis in climate change.
Hmm.
And my body gave out, right? And where at that point, 8 years of pushing myself and working myself to the bone, the bottom fell out. And
Hmm.
I had some very serious health problems where I came very close to death, and also like lost some of the function of my logical side of my brain from having a lot of seizures. There were so many things that just were completely out of balance in my system, and I had to leave the PhD program,
Okay.
and I had to leave science too. It was
Okay.
that I was no longer able to recall my education in a way that would be functional, nor could I ever show up to the kind of work that was required.
Okay.
So that in and of itself, that was a very, very painful experience,
Mhm.
and
I
I
can
was
imagine.
suffering really significantly. I know you recently had podcast with a rocket
With our
scientist
with
answer,
Melissa,
right?
yeah.
Melissa. And and it's interesting because it's like it was very similar thing happened with like an identity crisis of
Hmm.
like I thought I just worked for 10 years to become a scientist and that's all I ever wanted to do, and now I can't, and I'm being told by the doctors that I never will be able to do that again, right? I felt like
Mhm.
I had to find an entirely different way to navigate. And this was also, it was like, I was a very logical person, right? Adam Dickinson, you can understand this. I made all these decisions in my life through analysis. And much of my education, spiritual um, and scientific, had been to just learn how to navigate the world safely, right? And to just create a model in my mind that worked, that then I could feel safe, that I knew how things work and be prepared for everything.
Yep.
That model dissolved, right? And I had to be very in touch with my intuition then and find a different way. It's like, okay, that's gone. I thought that's all there was. Now what's left? And how do I make decisions? And how do I navigate life? So I discovered this intuitive capacity and the ability to make decisions based on what would increase my energy, right? It's like, I don't want to die. I need to be functional. I need
Hmm.
more energy for that. What's going to feel good instead of awful, and what's going to help me get a little bit more energy. And I followed that through these kind of micro decisions, all the way back to health. And that led me through a yoga teacher training, right? Yoga is profoundly
Okay.
healing and transformational. It led me through a year of homelessness where all I did was do practice. I went to Zen monastery. I really dove into the healing process. I also found a chief in the Lakota tradition who I became an apprentice of as I was exploring these healing capacities that were coming online from having this kind of near-death experience. Um, so that like was my plunge into the health and wellness world, was through just going through whatever I needed to go through from a firsthand experience uh, of to heal myself, to feel good. And that's when I became surrounded by wellness professionals and was lifted up and did find healing and did get my rational mind back and did prove all the doctors wrong, right? And when I emerged, it took about 2 years of full-time practice.
Wow.
Then I was basically like kind of almost spit out into service. It felt like that. It was just like working on myself, working on myself. And then the opportunity was like, now serve.
Mm.
And I felt very prepared for that. And that was this moment of stepping into a business partnership, which became True Education. But it began with creating this 6-month long immersion program, primarily for yoga teachers, that was based on the more obscure practices that are the philosophy, the ethics, of course, but energy body practices and lifestyle, and giving people real tools for transformation based on the tradition, and then guiding them through the process with support. And that was the experience of really the becoming a soul professional, is now being in my everyday life in service to 25 people who are in their transformation process, and feeling like it was the absolute pure alignment for me to do so. It felt like it was what I was born for. Nothing in science had ever felt this good. No accomplishment had ever felt that good.
Wow.
And it was just like all of the grief around my loss as a scientist, it went down to like 5%, right? I kept being like, why is it still there at all? But it went from anytime I'd walk into a bookstore and see science books, like starting sobbing and having to run out, to just being like so happy every single day at what I was able to do and provide.
That's awesome. I love it's such a perfect example of I mean, there's so much gifts that can happen through death. You know, it's like through dying we be reborn. And it's like I love how your logical brain just completely shut off. So it's like you could only go to your heart. It's like basically like, no, you need to turn this off so that you can work on this stuff. And I also love how it's a perfect example of through that healing journey. I think we all can go on these healing journeys, but afterwards you give it back, you give back. And I'm curious to know more about, about what that giving back looks like for you right now. And because I mean, you're working with space, and I'm just really, I'd love to learn more exactly what is that program look like? How are you supporting people, and what does that transformation look like for them?
Yeah. So right now, fast forward 15 years and of that kind of service and growing a company, and then the pandemic hit, and I felt very called for the first time to return to my roots with science. It was interesting because I noticed that a lot of my colleagues similarly started translating the work that they'd been doing into their roots as well, like just going and seeing this kind of being a part of this movement where we've done this work now for a decade. We've been preaching to the choir, so to speak. What does it mean to work on translating this and bringing it to a different audience? So following my intuition, and just this, basically there was somebody said a master's in space policy, and something just lit up, and I was like, I guess I'm going to do that. So I started school again for that. I started redefining the program, changing the language, came up with this vision for cosmic citizen trainings. It was very much like receiving a download. And then it's like I get the whole business plan over the course of a couple of weeks, write it all down, and now is the work of implementing it. So it took me years to re-enter the space world, and definitely having a degree in physics helps. It's like my ticket that gets me in the front door no matter what at all these places. So it's not just like I got that ticket, but really I feel like I've got like my Buddhist robes on, and then I put my business coat over it, and I'm like, let me in the front door. Listen to what I have to say. And so now, like, really the spark for this came when I went back to there was a colloquium at UC Berkeley. I like to sometimes just go back to my stomping ground and listen to a physics lecture and let that part of my brain turn on, which feels really good. It feels like stretching. And being immersed in the wellness world for so long, it was such a contrast where I looked around and I saw that wasted potential, like I was saying before, like how disembodied these scientists were, how stuck in their heads, how much they were lacking emotional intelligence, touch, too much screen time, bad food, all of these things. And I just, like, my heart just wanted to help them. And I saw the implications of the culture that supports these brightest minds really also handicapping them and skewing it. So here are the brightest minds, and they are not fully embodied. They are not connected to their heart. They are dropping out of school and starting businesses with mottos like move fast and break things. And that has a huge effect. So for, right now in society, technology and technology firms and these startups, they have a outweighed effect on the fate of the earth and of all of the inhabitants of it. Mm-hmm. And it's the value systems at play that direct the technology. Technology is a tool, right? But the culture and the value systems are what are going to define whether or not we use AI to solve climate change and cure cancer and fix wealth inequality, or it, destroys humans and the planet. There's a whole, there's the spectrum in there of what's possible based on how humans are interacting with it, right? And that's how humans are. Those particular individuals who are working with the technology are connected to themselves and to their own souls and the connection to the earth and what I would just say, like the natural flow, right? Then they're connected to their flow. So I believe that if I can guide people into their own heart so that they can find their own golden thread, as we call it, right? Their path through life that is optimized for them and is best for them and the whole, then that's the work that I want to be doing, right? That's what I feel called to do. So my company and all of the logistics of just creating new branding and getting myself out there is just the same process of lighting people, like creating sparks in people, and then providing them with a guided transformation process to help them be in alignment with themselves, and then do the hard work in the world, which involves using a different value system. And it's everything from how do you stay in your heart center when you're triggered, to how do you do it in a corporate environment when all of the rules are opposite value system.
I'm curious, how are people finding you to do this work?
There's a few things, right? So LinkedIn was the platform that I chose to emphasize with that, and then I did a lot of space conferences and like going out there, being seen, doing podcasts, doing interviews, showing up for things. It was a lot of free labor, right? Where it's just being like, I know what you have to do to invest to start something from scratch because I've done this before. And so it's just, I'm going to be earning the minimum that I can while putting as much energy into creating a platform. So the way that people tend to find me now is through two ways. One, through my putting myself out there through the space network, right? Mm-hmm. And which is mainly social media at this point, and then sometimes traveling to do talks or conferences. And then the other is I do something called source embodiment. Source embodiment is a pure energetic modality where I create a group field that accelerates people's process of awakening, basically.
Okay.
So it's a direct energy transmission. And that also, I do that in person and I do it online. And people who find me through that are also come in through because then the programs that create all the other tools that can support that awakening that is triggered through the energy. And then for people who come in through the science side of things, everyone needs the primary like lifestyle tools and all of these things that support it, and the meditation practices. But then they also, for the first time, get this energetic practice.
So just so I understand, and our listeners, of course, understand, the people that you're helping with this company, are they part of the space community, or are they people like all the soul professionals in the world that are blending the logic and the spiritual?
Um, Probably closer to the latter. So
Okay.
I worked really hard to market into the space industry. The space industry is still only about half of my students,
Okay.
right? Half of my clients come from there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I have an AI professor, I have a climate change specialist, I have somebody in fintech, I have, like there's still the technology side, and yeah, an aerospace engineer and like director of the Space Society, things like that. But then I also just have people who are wellness professionals or, single parents. Like there's still just, which is what my demographic was for the prior 15 years.
Yeah.
They still come and find me, right? And that feels very comfortable. And what I love is that I put these two in a room together because my programs are cohort based for the most part. And so what you have is then this total blending of culture where the space and technology people get to really learn how to show up in a group setting from the people who are in the wellness community who've either, run their own or they've been doing this type of thing for a long time.
Yeah.
So I love that I bring these two worlds together.
Yeah.
And what I see is like the bonds that are created are really profound through this process. And that's kind of my goal, is to merge these worlds, right?
Yeah. Same here.
That's awesome.
And
Adam Dickinson,
good.
you got a question?
Yeah, well, I wanted to build on that because Christina, yeah, I've experienced your programs before. And there's one thing that I really enjoy, which is you take individuals through a long journey. It's like a very kind of family-oriented experience. Tell us some more about like how I know one thing in particular you sort of emphasized earlier to us is that you have this retention model. And I know especially with personal growth, there's a way to go about it, but I'm curious to hear more about your perspective, especially with integrating the science and spirituality of things, how this long-term sort of view of retention and integrating skills and habits has sort of played into your business.
Mm-hmm. I take it as a tremendous privilege and responsibility to support people through a transformation process. And so that key there is responsibility. And that is something that I take on with the gravity that it requires, which is that like someone is trusting me to support them through a process. That process, I know, takes time. It takes years, right? If we're talking about getting from point A to point B, where I define point B very clearly as this really, we could call it self-actualization, right? Like awakening to the level of the self and being able to maintain that as a default state. That really is kind of a minimum of a year if you've got other things going on, and that's if you throw yourself into it. So it's true that like a year is some commitment from from a client can be scary for them, and I maintain that I don't have scarcity around that. This is what I can do to provide the results and to do this ethically. And I have other options for people who want shorter periods, but the thing that works the best is to have a small community of people who go through a process together, right? So this is a model that I especially worked within my Toltec teachings, which was that of an egg bay, that of where you have just a few tightly bonded people who then are working together, and there's a group field that's created through the commitment through the whole year. And that consistency and the safety that is provided and the way that they synergistically work off of like each other's practices in an energetic capacity means that what I like work to create is something that is so supportive that people become more and more committed to it as time goes on, because they realize like this is not like other things. This is not like a school course. This is not just these kinds of workshops. This is something that every time I go, it feeds me, and they get to watch each other blossom and change. And so when I talk about like this, the retention right now, I have 100% retention from year one to year two. There's just nobody wants to leave that. And they also recognize that the end of year one is just the beginning of a process where, okay, now you are rooted in yourself. Now the world is going to start to ask you to step up, because you guys know that's what happens, right? When you're on your soul path, life is going to ask you to do whatever's necessary, and it's going to always be in your your growth edge. And it's going to trigger any unresolved traumas. It's going to require a real merging of your intuition in situations where you've been told to only use logic, right? And you're going to need to keep building your strength and keep finding your own path. And so as people grow their capacity, they need more and more a different tool set, right? So part of it is that I've been doing this long enough that I have enough tools to provide years of curriculum for people. But it's also that when people sign up for my programs, they really get 100% of me. I don't limit their access. And like we have our monthly one-on-ones, those go for as long as they need to, over 2 hours potentially. I give them access to me through a group chat all the time. Their process is a priority. It's my responsibility, right? It's not a job that I need to be getting paid for. And I trust that the money piece works itself out. The money piece is super important. It does, right? And I have a lot of very particular ways that I work with that to make it ethical. But the model that I work with is one where there's no scarcity involved and there's no forcing involved. It feels like everyone who comes to me, we work intuitively to make sure it's a match. And then I work to create a very solid container that's easy for them to stay in. And I'm there with them every step of the way.
It's amazing. I love your commitment as you're talking. I just like that when you're talking about the sense of responsibility, the ethics, and just like that, if all teachers had that level of ethics, that level of commitment, I mean, we'd have a lot of great students. And I think it's great that you're shining that light in the corner where you are. And I don't have a question. I'm just saying that's awesome. So someone else can ask me a question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to build on that because I've experienced one of those programs. And I will say, Christina has a very high, I don't say expectation, but she really sets the bar high. I will say it was quite eye-opening for me too. Even with the sort of the rigid guidelines coming from the FBI on Christina's work ethic and discipline as well. I remember, Christina, some of the guidelines that you had with us, and they were super impressive. And so I know like some of the folks that I'm supporting who are in that moment of finding their intuitive path and exploring it. And I think a key component, what you said earlier, what I heard was this moment where logically the tools that someone might have no longer serve them anymore, and they have to rely on a different skill set. From your perspective, either from like the lifestyle shift or the mindset shift, what do you think going forward, a sole professional individual might need to receive or welcome in to step into this new path? Because I don't think it's really easy for a lot of logic-based individuals. I know for myself, it was quite painful doing it on my own. And so I just kind of curious your thoughts on what do you think sorry, my question is, um, for someone who's moving into the sole professional pathway journey, how can they prepare?
Mhm. Um, I think integrity is super important, which is being the change that you want to see, or being and embodying what it is that you're trying to teach or to offer, right? So shifting things into a service role is something that tends to make it emotionally much easier, where it's not really is so much about you, it's about what you can provide. Now, of course, there are certain psychologies where people do need to also learn how to receive, and not be just chronically giving and thinking about others. But what I'm talking about is more about let yourself overflow, right? So are you full in yourself, and do you have the do you, like, are you teaching what you know? If you're doing what you know, it should feel really like easeful with a little bit of effort, right? Like there's some effort and challenge in doing some of the elements, but there's a quality of it being it should be easier, right? And if you find yourself having to push, then you're probably pushing in the wrong direction, right? Because the flow of the soul is like, that was something that I had to really rewire myself, is just being so used to having to strive and push myself. Like it just always felt like I was swimming upstream. And I looked around and that was what everyone was. So it was like, this is what life is swimming upstream. And if you let go, then you wash away into a trailer park. So the the shift there is actually, no, I trusting that life can be easy, that I can feel good, and that those can be my actual litmus test in almost every moment, right? Like there's enough self-awareness that's needed for you to be able to tell the difference between old patterns of laziness and disinclination towards effort versus following your intuition, right? Your intuition will often say, I want to do this, and something's like, no, that bit of resistance. It's like, I don't want to. I want to sit here and watch TV, so there's a certain level of like courage and a decision that gets made to follow your intuition, and that often includes doing things and not doing things, right? So sometimes it means slowing down, and just taking care of yourself. The best way is like maintain whatever practices you have found in your life to stay connected to your spirit, to stay connected to your intuitive capacity, and to keep your body and your mind in good shape, right? That's where that overflowing comes. Are you well, right? Because it doesn't serve anyone for you to be like exhausting yourself or making yourself sick in service of something else.
Hmm. Well, Cristina, you are just awesome. We could just talk with you for hours. I know. I love that you're in this amazing bridge in this world that needs it so much, like so much. And I'm so happy that you're there. And as we're wrapping up the show, just I guess how can folks get in touch with you just to join your programs, be part of your world? Let us know.
CristinaStarr.com is my primary website. So that's CRISTINASTAR, right? Just no H in the Cristina. And on there's the source embodiment. There's my Cosmic Citizen Core, which is my primary program. I also do one-on-one mentorships where it's like, if you feel a spark come alive in listening to me right now, I like recommend that you just follow that up on my site. You can fill out, you can actually just book a call with me. So we book the call and then we just talk and connect and see intuitively what makes sense where you are in your life and what I have to provide. It may be that we do some one-on-one mentorship. It may be that I just send you some resources. It may be that you sign up for one of my programs. And then you can also follow me on LinkedIn, and those links are in the show notes. And on Instagram, Instagram tends to be the place that I advertise my source embodiment energy work, and which, if you're going to do that, if you want to come and receive a bunch of like very woo energy work that's very powerful in a group that includes aerospace engineers from top aerospace companies who are doing it also, then that is available to you. And then LinkedIn is where I just exclusively do all of my space stuff. And for those of you who are interested in space and the overview effect, I really do work with the culture of space very directly. And I work with Frank White, who is the father, the progenitor of the overview effect, which is the awakening experience that people have when they look down at the Earth from orbit and really feel themselves as the Earth and see the fragility and have a shift in identity around that. So I work actively on that, and with developing a program for commercial astronauts to optimize this as a personal transformation experience, which it is. And so that's kind of my cutting edge research and the things that I post on LinkedIn about.
Amazing.
Old she is awesome.
Mic drop, awesome. Cristina Starr.
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone that all of Cristina's information is in the show notes, the bio. If you are driving, do not read it now, but you can stop. If you need to get something, you can always contact the show as well. Cristina, thank you so much for being a part of our show today.
Thank you for doing this, and each of you for being you, following your own soul, and providing something that is beautiful. May it inspire people and benefit all beings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us for this episode of the Soul Professional Podcast, part of the Soul Professional Global Conversation Series. If today's dialogue sparked something in you, we invite you to continue the conversation by subscribing. Hit our subscribe button, please. Share the episode with others and connect with our Soul Professional community at soulprofessional.com. We define a soul professional as someone who lives in a higher vibration, has an alternative approach to business, and is here to help repair the world. All of our programs are free and community supported. So if you're looking for healing circles, soul circles, networking with others, master classes on building a business around your purpose, come check out the Soul Professional community. We also have in-person meetings starting all over the world. Right now, we are in 6 continents and 49 countries. We picked up an extra one this week. So please check us out if this all vibed with you. And this series is an open invitation to explore, question, and expand together. Until next time, stay curious, stay conscious, and stay connected. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you.